Thank you, Nancy. I am grateful for this invitation and very happy to see fellow Rotarians in my club, which I haven't changed in spite of me not being in Winnipeg very often. So what I would be talking about today is I'll lead you through a little presentation about the topic that I'm extremely passionate about, and I will try to explain why am I passionate about it and what actually the research I'm conducting entails and what might be a possible call for action for Rotarians who are here and anybody else who would like to actually in some way support the effort. So I have 2 years ago, I have left full-time employment at Red River College and launched my own business, Solutions for Sustainable Future, which is a social enterprise. So what I would be talking about today is I would be talking about the problems that this research aims to address in some way and the solution that I'm exploring. I will talk a little bit about the research project itself, explain how does this research actually involves transdisciplinary approach, which I learned what it actually means in the past 2 years. I look into the practice of social entrepreneurs and point out where actually there are misalignments and if you want lack of harmonious, focused effort due to the different directions that research, education, and practice in this field have taken. At the end, I will conclude with the research objectives and the impact and elaborate a little bit on possible Rotary role in the area of knowledge exchange. So I'm very much, if you want, overusing this particular research, but to this date, I haven't found a better one that actually tells us what are the persistent global problems today. Yeah, so about 25,000 people have been asked to say all over the world what do they see as the biggest problem, and the climate change came as the priority, destruction of nature altogether, then a large-scale conflicts. And mind you, this was before the war in Ukraine has actually started, and equality, income discrimination, where would actually be poverty too. So 25,000 people who are representing a sample of mostly, if you want, youth between 20 and 35 have actually seen this as the biggest problems. So what the solution might be, and that's actually something that is extremely hard to find out, because in our current institutional structure, a lot of people are trying to find a solution to those problems, and as you can see around us, it's not really that we have solved the global warming or the destruction of nature or poverty or global conflicts. So social entrepreneurship has been proposed as one of the, if you want, best hopes for humanity. The problem is that essentially, if you ask 50 people what is social entrepreneurship, you will get 50 answers. And I thought that academia has a better, if you want, clearer definition of that term. But unfortunately, it does not. There is no consensus in research what it is. So I'm going to go with the dominant definition and explain why actually social entrepreneurship emerged as a solution. Muhammad Yunus, founder of Grameen Bank, he calls the same thing social business. Some people call it social innovation. Depending on the angle that people approach, it's basically what we are all talking about is the same thing. So OECD issued in 2020 a call for action, and they said that persistent problems are growing in complexity. And they reminded the humanity on, where actually the problem have begun. After the Second World War, if you look into this, I try to make it simple, but somewhat complicated graph on the right-hand side. John Maynard Keynes, a British economist, he actually proposed so-called Keynesian compromise. And the Keynesian compromise essentially meant that economic wealth will be created by business. So businesses are going to create a healthy economic growth. And some of the income coming from business activity is actually going to go to a welfare state. And this welfare state is a state that creates social benefits and environmental, if you want, balance with the natural world. Now, somewhat in 70s, 80s, and 90s, it became very clear that the welfare state cannot fulfill this purpose. And we have also seen that business itself has grown beyond the national borders. We have transnational monopolies that are actually entering into this social realm and are trying to address environmental problems and social problems. So this is going, we are going as a society through a transition. And in this transition, a number of organizational models have emerged and have established themselves globally. Yeah, we have on one side of the spectrum charities that are essentially living off donations and trying to address social problems and environmental problems. And we have on the other end of the spectrum business that is fully focused on making money. All in between is oftentimes referred to as a social enterprise, social business, socially innovative entities, and so forth. The area that actually most hope is being put at is this area where an entity and an organization would actually create economic wealth, means would make money, social wealth, would ameliorate the society, and would actually restore the environmental disbalances. So this sweet, if you want, spot of intersection among the three is the area that I'm actually trying to research. And I have been in this particular point of curiosity for the last, I would say, 15 years at least. And at Red River College, I had about 200 students engaged in looking at global best practices of any type of organization that actually can create social wealth, environmental wealth, and economic wealth. And we found that, there are many such organizations around the world. So these organizations create all aspects of wealth at the same time. But in spite of all efforts to promote it and to, in a way, inspire people to go this path, we are seeing that the growth of this type of organizational if you want, problem-solving laboratories is not growing at a scale at which we would like it to happen, and the impact is presenting a challenge. So Michael Porter, the Harvard dean, has actually commented on that, and the reason for that is oftentimes being identified as the lack of if you want, adequate preparation for people to become social entrepreneurs. So social entrepreneurs existed in practice before they have entered into schools. And it was the first course that was ever taught in social entrepreneurship was at the request of students in United States. And that's how the area in which I specialize somewhat of social entrepreneurship education has actually started. The reason why we created this educational stream is because the social entrepreneurs in practice are very successful, and we would like this practice to actually be somehow scaled up. The number of social entrepreneurship programs have been launched at different academic organizations, incubators, community groups, but they have actually not resulted in a significant increase of socially innovative enterprises. One of the reasons why this is not happening according to research, and I have quoted some of the researchers who stated this is the reason, is that people who are close to sources of social challenges, people who really understand where the problems are, they do not actually participate in entrepreneurship education of any kind. And those illustrations on the left are actually some of the things that social entrepreneurs do. And I apologize if some of you have seen this before, but I'm fascinated by the creativity of social entrepreneurs. This coral-like structure represents the hyperbolic space, which is essentially the gravity field and the way that our universe looks like. And thanks to a social entrepreneur in academia, Dr. Diana Tamina, we can actually see how does it look like, feel it, move it, which we cannot do with the mathematical function that we see on a whiteboard. And it represents a great way of actually how this social entrepreneurship works in practice. It makes connections between unlikely connections to create something that is unique, new, and by all means useful. The other image is the biomimicry concept of a paint called sharkite. The sharks have been identified as creatures that have skin that is bacteria-free. So if you are scratched by a shark, it would not actually result in a bacterial infection. And they have created paint that you can paint hospital surfaces with and keep it bacteria-free without chemicals. So those are the kinds of ideas that I'm actually talking about. And the challenge is, how do we educate people to come up with those ideas? At the same time, OECD, that is probably the most active international organization in this area in terms of producing some sort of data, they have essentially said that people close to social problems are so-called missing entrepreneurs. And those missing entrepreneurs are defined as underrepresented or disadvantaged social groups, such as women, youth, seniors, immigrants, and people with disabilities. Essentially, almost everybody, is missing in action. And the OECD, World Economic Forum, United Nations, they all believe that the participation of these groups in social entrepreneurship is crucial for the transformation of the society. So they issued several reports, and they have even put the amount of money that actually is associated with the fact that these groups of populations are not necessarily, their knowledge is not being used to create social enterprises, So what I aim to investigate is actually the following research question. And it is, what kind of concepts, motives, education, and skills are needed to enable missing entrepreneurs worldwide so that they can start and operate social enterprises? So that's what I'm trying to find out. And that's why I'm traveling so much. And I have to just say that I have gotten a generous support from Social Sciences Research Council, MITAX, and St. Paul's University for this research. My proposal came 10th in the country for the Social Sciences Research Council graduate doctoral scholarship. And it makes me very proud that in my age, actually, I can, do something that would be supported by, academia and research community. So now I would actually, talk a little bit as to how do I want to approach this research and what am I doing. But before I do so, I wanted to ask, does anybody have any questions? So, so what I wanted to talk about is essentially the approach I have taken in order to find out what people need to know in order to become social entrepreneurs. And I have opted for a transdisciplinary research. And I would like to show and share what exactly it is. we have different disciplines that are approaching to the problem. And that kind of approach has been associated with multidisciplinarity. It is like going to the doctor and then you have different specialists observing your body and everybody giving opinion, and you are trying to actually figure out how those things connect. So next step is interdisciplinarity, and my doctorate is interdisciplinary doctorate, where actually we take several disciplines and we create a new discipline that takes out of the existing disciplines the knowledge that is pertinent to the problem that we are seeking to address. So it is essentially as if you would have a general practitioner who would actually get all the opinions of the specialists and focus all the input and all the knowledge to your particular health situation. And then transdisciplinarity is the type of research or exploration of any type of a problem where you actually involve not only the knowledge that resides in academia or in existing structures, but you also involve people's lived experience. So you connect what we actually have as academic knowledge, as institutional knowledge, with what people are living through, and then you try out to fit to find actually the solution to complex problems. This approach works only for complex problems because it allows you to essentially look at the problem from multiple sides and get what is important in each segment of knowledge if you want, for addressing this problem. Why not, approach it from one discipline? I started my education my doctoral education in a doctoral program in education. And I have found out that I simply cannot, address it with what education as a discipline has to offer as a knowledge-based. It was just not sufficient. And also a very, sad statistics came from United Kingdom that out of all people who receive entrepreneurship education, only 2% ever start a business. They are more successful than those who did not receive the education, but very few actually, start a business. So you start thinking, what exactly are we actually doing if we have such a low success rate? And of course, there are other factors, but education is one of them. There is also, a bit of a problem that business has taken over this field of social entrepreneurship simply by the virtue of name. It's called entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is in business. So social entrepreneurship is kind of like a little sister of entrepreneurship. So if we put a little bit of social focus into this entrepreneurship, we might actually create social entrepreneurs. It did not work. It doesn't work. The welfare state, what Srini has asked, tried with public administration, with incubators, with, different community-based organizations, and they are making a lot of, if you want, positive impact, but not sufficient, not at the global scale. And finally, the result of my literature review and consultations with people is that it has to actually encompass knowledge from education, from business, from public administration, from sociology, and it has to be actually both interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary. Yeah? So the knowledge about this particular skill set resides within many different, if you want, wells of wisdom. Where are the issues between the practice and the research and where academia goes? So practitioners, social entrepreneurs, they are actually people who are action-oriented. And I will use Mr. Muhammad Yunus, for whom I have a great respect, who essentially just saw the problem and he solved it. He went, around different obstacles, and he created microfinancing as a concept that is now spreading all over the world. He created a mini factory together with Danone to actually give people nutritious food. So that kind of thinking is innovative, is creative, is uplifting. The policymakers are trying to support this practice, yeah, but the organizational structure in policymaking realm is so complicated that by the time that we reach consensus on a global scale, the problems are just, getting bigger faster than we can actually find the solutions. As I said, researchers and academics often say, based on their observations, what should be done. But we do not necessarily say exactly how it should be done. And finally, missing entrepreneurs have this very significant knowledge about social problems that we are not using. We do, like, they are not part of either academic education or dialogue at the level of IOs. You might be surprised as to who are the majority of missing entrepreneurs in regards to the perspective that OECD offers. So essentially, most of the missing entrepreneurs are actually, the most numerous group are women. And it is women between 50 and 64 years of age. So there are, of course, all other groups that are identified as missing entrepreneur segments. So the connection between research, education, and policy on one side and the real life on the other side is actually missing. In practice, people have a myriad of solutions. And I will just, mention few examples here from India. One is this solar rickshaw that has been constructed in Kerala. And this is a bank, Mahtud Bank, that is actually owned by a family of one of my students. So I had the pleasure to learn more about their work. So the applications from practice are so versatile, so different. Whether it's a mathematical crochet, whether it is biomimicry, whether it is creating a solar rickshaw, or whether it's a Mahtud Bank or a Grameen Bank, it actually all serves the same purpose. It's trying to solve the social issues that I have mentioned at the beginning of my presentation. Meanwhile, in academia and in actually international organizations, we are not having a consensus on what social entrepreneurship is. I just want, in the interest of time, to show you this map that actually says what is social entrepreneurship and how it relates to social economy, how does it relate to, social work, how does it relate to commercial entrepreneurship. If you are reading the literature, it is really, a very, very complicated, and there is no consensus on what content should we teach, which pedagogy should we employ, what kind of theoretical background should be conveyed, and how should actually this be done. In Canada, Social Innovation Generation and Mars Entrepreneurship Incubator in Toronto have done the most in this direction. And there are, about a dozen social entrepreneurship incubator, including one at the university where I study, which is called Atelier. So we are all trying to do something, but there is no clarity on what exactly should be the content, what should be the pedagogy, what should be the theoretical background. My personal experience as being a social entrepreneur, traveling around the world and meeting social entrepreneurs and trying to learn from them, is that those people are not competitive at all. They collaborate, they meet socially, they exchange ideas, they have absolutely no issue to actually share their solution with the rest of the world. And they are fun. They are trying to actually address the problem of segregation and racism through comedy, like The Axis of Evil. They are addressing birds that are being affected by the oil spills so that they would not get pneumonia in a fun way. The other image here that I would like to bring to your attention are actually a collaborative group of social entrepreneurs called biofabrication entrepreneurs, who actually grow the fabric very similar to silk or cotton or just about anything from rhizomes of the mushrooms and enzymes. So essentially, you can create the fabric for your garment in your bathtub and in your garden using the technology that they are developing collaboratively. So they are multicultural, they are everywhere, they are multidisciplinary, collaborative, and fun. So how do we actually create that as something that we can replicate through some sort of educational program is the challenge that I would, explore. I will try to streamline this misalignment between the theory and research that actually is trying to define social entrepreneurship, trying to see whether it's a subsegment of entrepreneurship or something else. Then you have educational practice, and in education, we mostly look what other people are doing, and we try to do our best not to go too much from what others are doing and to lean on best practices. Oftentimes, education is not connected with the theory and research. And finally, missing entrepreneurs in practice, they have a number of different questions. They are essentially saying, okay, so tell me, how should I practically do that? Can somebody work with me on that? What kind of organizational structure should I adopt? Should I register as a business? Should I become a non-for-profit? Why do I have to be non-for-profit? Why is profit excluded from the equation? Because if you are doing something good, you do earn profit, yeah? How to combine disciplines, where to find people to actually source knowledge from. So this misalignment is actually part of what I would be trying to look at in the next 2 years of actually doing this PhD. The reason why these misalignments exist is because social entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurship education has mostly been situated in disciplines where it does not belong. So it was actually sitting within a business as a discipline. The other very big issue is that global interconnected social issues are addressed by local solutions. So we are trying to actually address something as big as global warming with the local educational and local practical solutions. People who actually are heroes of the practice, who develop new solutions, they really don't have much impact on research and theory. And social entrepreneurs collaborate, they don't compete. So the whole idea behind the business is something that they are actually very much not wanting to accept as their way of life. Finally, because of the prevalence of English language, according to researchers, over 80% of the publications about this topic are being produced in the West, meaning North America and Europe. While actually we have 80% of social enterprises in so-called global South. So the knowledge that we are teaching is coming from the Western approach, and the practice is far more developed in the areas that are adopting our educational approach, and their cultural perspectives, their solutions are not included in, the toolkit that we are giving to people who aspire to be social entrepreneurs. And finally, we are not taking interdisciplinary approach. We are trying in academia to stay within our discipline. So what am I doing? I will be going around 5 continents, and in each of them, I will select a group of 5 to 10 social entrepreneurs that are having creative solutions, are recognized and are sustainably operating for over 5 years. And I intend to actually ask those people, the same set of questions. I would like to ask them, what education did they receive in order to actually do what they are doing? What kind of knowledge base are they using? Who is helping them? What kind of skills do they consider to be important? And what do they think we need to teach people in order for people to be like them? So that would be global research, and I would look into common patterns. I would like to see whether there is something that I can say is common in terms of the knowledge base that social entrepreneurs draw upon, regardless of whether they are coming from Indonesia, or they are coming from Chile, or they are coming from Vietnam, or from Cayman Islands. So I will ask and see whether there is a pattern. I hypothesize that there is a pattern, as I'm very long in this community, and it seems to me that there is a lot of alignment. And then, based on that, while I'm actually doing this, I will be practicing this type of education. I started in 2022. Offering this educational tool, if you want, for free. And the way I do it, I connect with the universities in different countries where I am asked to teach or where I know people. And we connect students from 3 or 4 continents, depending on, who is available and how it can be done. And I convey and share the knowledge that I have obtained and ask the students, do they think that this would help them start a social enterprise? So the first module of that type, called Social Innovation Lab, was offered to a group of Chinese students from South China Normal University, where I teach innovation and creativity. It was offered to Mexican students from Aguascalientes, from a university for underprivileged youth, where I volunteer, and it was offered to university in Croatia, where I also volunteer, and their students are involved in Erasmus program, so they come from all over the world. And finally, it was offered to our Canadian students at University of Prince Edward Island. What I practically did, I actually made teams of 4 to 5 students, one from Mexico, one from China, one from Canada, one from Croatia, or anywhere else in Europe. And I asked them to select one UN Agenda 2030 goal. Students selected health and focused on health. And then I actually worked with them for 2 weeks, pretty much 24/7, to create socially innovative ideas that can actually be profitable, that they can implement at 4 continents simultaneously as a team. We have presented the solutions in front of a few hundred people from all over the world. Existing social entrepreneurs with whom I work have been, if you want, adjudicators, and their role was not to judge, but to essentially give students the idea of how it can be enhanced, and to give them access to their network, so that if they want to start that type of business, that the students can actually do it. It was a beautiful experience, and a lot of friendships have been made among these young people. It was done during COVID, and I'm preparing to launch the second Social Innovation Lab in November this year. As I research and try in collaboration with students or community members or anyone who wants to actually join these free sessions, I will actually try to propose social entrepreneurship education tools, pedagogy, and strategy to actually scale up this type of knowledge exchange. So I will, in the interest of time, I will wrap it up, and I will say where do I see that Rotary can actually really help, and it's not some sort of please do it, but essentially it's a research in progress, and I believe that Rotary can help a lot in knowledge exchange and in connecting me with the local community and the local social entrepreneurs, so that I can actually really, get information from people who are recognized in their community as such. I believe that I stayed with my club because it is the first club that went out of United States. And I think in a way it has some symbolic meaning that if I come from that club and say, I would like to connect with your community and spread this type of thinking and share what I'm doing and ask for, connections and network, that it would actually be very good for both Rotary and for this research. So the way I intend to achieve this is I will be working with my doctoral studies. I also, as some of you know, I am still engaged in a Square Meter for Peace, which is a women entrepreneurs global organization. I will be most certainly drawing on research that I have done with hundreds of my students, and a lot of the former students of mine are actively participating and sending me messages, calling me to visit. I just visited two of my students in Latin America who are trying to launch social enterprises. They invited me as a guest, and it was a lovely experience. So those would be the vehicles I would actually draw upon. I also have secured a collaboration from CASO SACO Catalyst program, through which I volunteer around the world. So they are also helping me access certain destinations. And finally, where I need the help, or if you want support, is in awareness building. I would like to present this material, if you think it's pertinent, in every country I visit, at a local Rotary club, and actually share with people what is being done. I would also like to try to leverage Rotary Network to find social entrepreneurs, incubators, and universities that might want to participate in a trial global social innovation lab, which is absolutely free. It's just a part of research. And I would, of course, like to expand partnership. So see whether people know some good organizations that I should connect with. At the end, there we go. It is a call for action. The idea is to, through this research, source knowledge from the private sector, from the research community, through National Research Council, from international organizations, and of course, from a plural society organizations such as Rotary, that are essentially organizations of philanthropists and civilians, as well as CASO SACO that is, assembling volunteers, so that I can use as many different pathways to both share what I learn, give people access to try this education, and also collect data on what works and what does not. And that would conclude my presentation. I can show you at the end the extensive bibliography I went through, and I will share with anybody who is interested in that. Lots of publications, but essentially this would be the summary of what actually is being published as far as I could review in 2 years of my studies so far. Thank you very much for listening to me so attentively. And now we can actually stop it, and I